Listen now, and I shall tell you an old tale from the Faroe Islands, a tale so ancient that the cliffs themselves still remember it, and I find that to be fascinating. For the old people of the islands once believed that a giant and a witch tried to tear the Faroe Islands from the sea itself and drag them back to Iceland. And even now, the people say you can still see them standing there turned to stone beside the crashing ocean. Far out amongst the cold northern seas stand two lonely sea stacks, Resin og Kettlingen, the giant and the witch. And the old folk of the Faroe Islands say those rocks were once living creatures. Long ago, when the North Atlantic world was young and wild, giants wandered the mountains of Iceland. In those days the sea belonged to storms, the winters were cruel, and men feared what moved beyond the safety of the firelight. Now one night a giant climbed high amongst the cliffs of Iceland and gazed out across the dark sea. Far in the distance beneath the moonlight he saw the Faroe Islands rising from the ocean, green cliffs, tall mountains, waterfalls falling into black waves, and envy entered his heart, for the islands were beautiful, too beautiful, he thought, for mortal men. So the giant sought out an old witch who lived alone amongst the lava fields. She was ancient beyond reckoning, her back cut with age, her fingers thin as dead branches, and the old stories say strange things whispered around her in the darkness. The giant spoke to her. "Help me drag these islands back to Iceland, and they shall belong to us," he said. The witch smiled, and the giant wished she had not, for her eyes were like cold moonlight upon the deep ocean water. She agreed to help him, but dark magic always carries a price. So beneath the cover of a storm and the darkness, the giant and the witch crossed the sea towards the Faroe Islands. The waves crashed against the rocks like thunder, rain lashed across the ocean, and the wind screamed through the night like spirits upon the sea. Meanwhile, the islanders slept peacefully in their halls. Fishermen rested beside dying fires. Children slept beneath the blankets, and no one knew what was creeping towards them across the black water. At last the giant reached the cliffs of Æðiskatla. The witch climbed beside him, carrying enormous ropes woven through sorcery and strange runes. Together they wrapped the ropes around the mountains themselves. Then the giant pulled, and the whole island shook. Dogs barked wildly, birds exploded into the sky. Loose stones thundered down the cliffs into the seas below. The sleeping villagers awoke in terror. Some believed the world itself was breaking apart. Again the giant pulled. The mountains groaned, the earth trembled beneath the islanders' feet, and the witch raised her arms towards the storm cloud, screaming ancient curses into the wind. The sea churned white around the cliffs. Fishing boats smashed against the rocks, and some say even the church bells began ringing by themselves in the darkness. Still, the Faroe Islanders would not move. The Faroe Islanders held firm against the sea, but the giant roared with fury and pulled harder still. The witch shrieked beside him like something not entirely human. The cliffs cracked, the rope strained, and all through the night the storm raged around him. Then, at last, beyond the eastern sea, a pale light began to appear. It appeared. Dawn. The first rays of the rising sun touched the cliffs of the Faroe Islands. The witch screamed a horrifying scream. The giant froze where he stood. For the ancient creatures of the old North feared the sunlight, and before they could flee, the sun turned them both to stone. The giant became the towering sea stack called Lisin. The witch became Kellingin beside him, and there they still stand, facing the islands across the crashing waves of the North Atlantic, frozen forever, a warning from the old world. Even now, when storms gather around the Faroe Islands and mist crawls across the cliffs, and the old people still tell the tale. Some say the giant still strains against the ropes beneath the sea during the fiercest storms. Others say the witch still whispers curses upon the wind at night. And perhaps that is why the Faroe Islands feel so ancient, so wild, so untamed, and though the old world never truly left them. But let's just talk about what could this be? What does this tale mean? What does it represent? Now, in my mind, as I'm telling this tale, it reminds me of an earthquake. Did the Faroe Islands suffer from a big earthquake where the cliffs cracked and stones came up from the ground? Perhaps it was volcanic activity, for instance. It makes you think, doesn't it? Because it always makes you think where the stories came from. Is this an old warning by the people of the Faroe Islands that when it's very stormy, it is not safe to go outside, for the cliffs can crack and stones can fall? And let's face it, the best place to be in a storm is in your longhouse by your fire, keeping warm and drinking mead. But what do you think is the origin of this story? And have you ever been to the Faroe Islands? And what story from the Faroe Islands would you like me to tell next? If you enjoy Viking history, Nordic folklore, giants, witches, forgotten legends and medieval storytelling, welcome to Northworthy. Like, comment, especially share the video. It generally helps the channel to grow and keeps these ancient stories alive. The sources: Faroe folktales, V.U. Hammersheim, Faroe oral traditions, Lisin Argeligin. Visit Faroe Islands, Legend of the Giant and the Witch, the National Museum of the Faroe Islands, Nordic Folklore Studies, University of Copenhagen, and I would love to one day visit those two stones, the giant and the witch, and tell this tale to you standing beside them. Goodbye from Braggy.